Hello, this is Justin Seven with SportsbookReview.com. This week I'm going to answer a very important question. Pure Carnage asked me to address this question raised by Sportlock Picks. Should he play a middle on NBA where he can play a team at +3 and the favorite at -1? This is a very important question that any professional can answer. A lot of times you'll find a number that's off market, and this will present opportunities to make money. In this case, Sportlock Picks found two numbers that were off market. He found +3 and he found -1 when the market price on average was -2. So how do you decide if it's worth betting either or both sides when you have a middle like that? The first question you need to know is what are the push percentages, or that is the odds the game lands exactly on a number, for the half points that you're getting for free. In this case, the market price was 2. He's capturing the entire 2 and half of the 3 and half of the 1. So what we're going to do is, first I'm going to show you a source to find half-point value calculations. SBRforum.com has a free half-point calculator. If you go into the Handicapper Think Tank and do a search for half-point calculator, you can easily find a link from Gantro, who created this. These types of calculations are determined by looking at lots of games and figuring out how often a game is likely to land on a certain number, like the 1, the 2, and the 3 in this example. In this example, the numbers we care about are the push percentage for the 2, which is 4.03%, the 1 is 2.27, and the 3 is 3.83. Now I could do an entire video on how to calculate the push rates on half points, but for this let's just assume Gantro did it correctly, and I'm going to make two other assumptions. The first assumption I'm going to make in addition to that is that the push rates don't change the further you get away from the spread. So in this example, we use the push rate for 1 even though the spread was at 2. The second assumption I'm going to make is that we're using Kelly betting, and that's another topic for discussion, but for this demonstration we're going to assume you're using full Kelly. The first thing we're going to do is look at the EV on the two possible bets. That is, playing the Celtics +3 and the Lakers -1. First, we're going to look at the EV of the bet Celtics +3 when the market price is Celtics +2. From the half-point calculator, we know that the game will land on the 3 exactly 3.8% of the time, again, subject to the assumption we made. We're going to win this bet 50% of the time, plus any time the game would land on the 2. If the game is lined at exactly +2, then a bet at +2 you would expect to push 3.8% of the time and win each other side 48% of the time. In this case, we've turned that roughly 4% from a push to a win, so the bet +2.5 would win 52% of the time. In addition, you're capturing part of the 3, which turns the 3 into a push. So 3.8% of the time, those pushes. The EV is pretty easy to figure out. You just look at your win percentage divided by 1.1, because you're laying 110, and you subtract from that the lose percentage, and you get an EV of a little over 3% on that bet. Now you can do the same thing with the Lakers bet, and you're going to see similar calculations. You're only capturing the push on the 1, though. The 1 doesn't happen as often. The game does not land on the 1 as often as it lands on the 3. So this bet's not going to be quite as good. Your EV on the Lakers -1 will only be a little over 1.5%. If you had a $100,000 bankroll and we're betting at full Kelly, you can figure out how much you want to risk on each of these numbers. On the Celtics +3, you want to risk a little over $3,000, which will give you expected value equity of $94. Lakers -1, you bet over $1,500 for equity of $24. Now what you're going to see is, with a $100,000 bankroll, you're quickly going to bet more than you're allowed to when you're picking off any number. Now the EV calculations change a little bit if you bet both of them at the same time. The odds of you winning both bets when you're playing for the middle are the odds of you pushing on the 2, which is 4%. The odds of you winning exactly one bet are the odds of you pushing on the 1 or the 3, which works out to be 6%. And then if you're going to win one bet, lose one bet, for every $100 you bet on each side, you're going to lose $10, which works out to be 1/22 of your at-risk money. Now this only has an EV of the whole bet of a little over 2%, but your at-risk money is only 1/22 of how much you're actually investing, because you can't lose both bets. So if you bet 1,000 on 1,100 to win 1,000 on each side, you've tied up 2,200 in capital, but you can only lose 100. What this does is it means you can put a lot more money, a lot more equity into this. So by middling and having anti-correlated plays, you can have equity of $1,000 from the situation instead of what we talked about earlier was just a little bit of over 100. Now, you're never going to be able to bet $25,000 on an off-market number, but there's something very important to learn from this, and that is when you have positive EV bets that are anti-correlated. For example, playing the opposite sides of two different games, you can put a lot more money into that to squeeze out more equity. Now, a lot of times you'll see this when you have the opportunity to bet, for example, one side on a spread and another side teased, where you can win one or both bets, but you can't lose both. If you have any other questions about gambling-related topics, feel free to write me at justin@sportsbookreview.com.